Welcome into another edition of Kickin It. We had a special one last week, and we got a special one this week. What was that?
That was my windy.
What?
It's windy.
Oh, okay. I don't get it. What am I missing?
Aiden,
When you're the Dan McCarney press conference.
who the hell is this guy?
I don't remember these things. We have Dan McCarney on, as you saw in the title. And I mean, so again, behind the curtain, we always do the interview and then we do the intro afterwards. So we kind of know what we got into so we can kind of promote it. And we gave a warning last week. Be prepared for any walls that are around you, that they're reinforced so you don't run through them and damage the entire structure of your house, because roads got you going. Rhodes and Mac are two, they're cut from the same cloth. And that is, boy, we got that guy's an absolute treasure. And I'm so excited for you guys to listen to it.
Yeah, this one was, I love the Coach Rhodes one. That one's probably still going to be my favorite because it's near and dear to my heart. But this one is like close second. This was fun.
As always, we're brought to you by Kelderman Manufacturing. If you need any machine work done, anything laser cutting, anything that requires a specific actual metalworking product, Kelderman.com. He's an Iowa State guy, Southern Iowa. It's good folk down there. And without getting any more preamble.
Hold on, did you see this? Did you see a sign that they made for Chris for his birthday?
No.
So they do laser cutting. They gave him a sign that said, "Happy birthday, Chris Low T Williams." So, yeah,
I hope he put that on a truck.
Great.
Oh man. Anyway, so this is you got about an hour's worth of Dan McCarney, and you're gonna want about 2.5 hours more of Dan McCarney. So without any further ado, Dan McCarney.
And now we welcome in the man who built the foundation for what Iowa State football is today, legendary head football coach, Dan McCarney. Coach, how are you?
Great, guys. How you doing? Good to see you. I'll give you applause. Good to see you guys.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate it.
We're good, man. Hey, we appreciate you hopping on with us. We had Coach Rhodes on last week, and I think I'd be remiss to not start with this. He gave us his version of how you guys met, and I want to hear it from your point of view. How did you first get in contact with Coach Rhodes?
Yeah, I may forget what I had for lunch, but if it has anything to do with football, I'm pretty good about the remembering those things. But anyway, I knew who Paulie was. He probably knew who I was. He was out at Pacific at the time. I had kind of got my staff in place, and but I still had there was a possibility of something happening, and I just was really impressed with this guy, even though I didn't know him. I'd never met him before. I talked to him on the phone, and he was real persistent. And I learned this a long time ago from Coach Fry. Sometimes the most talented, sometimes the ones with the most experience, sometimes the ones with the most, great resumes may not be the ones that you necessarily need to always hire or listen to. There's something about persistence and consistency and wanting something really bad. And Paulie Rhodes was nonstop that way. He really wanted it bad. And in the end, guys, I was really glad that I hired him. He was smart. He was loyal. He was hardworking. Came from a coach's family, as you know. Cecil passed just recently, as you guys know. Just phenomenal family, and couldn't have made a better hire when I brought Paulie in. Just couldn't have been. One of the hardest days, honestly, in my career was when he decided to leave, go be a coordinator, because I knew that was going to happen someday, just like it did with me leaving Iowa after 36 years in Iowa City and 22 decades in Iowa to go to Wisconsin. Those days are not necessarily the same nowadays, but back then you had to go be a coordinator, show that you could coach and recruit and lead half a football team as a coordinator before you ever got a sniff as a head coach. Yeah. So I knew Paulie was going to end up going someday because he was that talented. Little did I know we were going to end up playing in that bowl game, but that's how I remember it. I was really glad that I ended up hiring him. May not have been the first time around, but as an opening came on my staff, I never forgot that guy that was so damn consistent and wanted it so bad. And he was an Iowa native, even though our paths had really never crossed. I played in the Big Ten. I coached in the Big Ten. I left Iowa after all those years, as I said, went to Wisconsin. But there was this guy that just wanted it so bad, kept coming, kept contacting me. And in the end, it was a fantastic hire.
Have you ever hired anyone else from, because his recollection of the story is that he didn't have your phone number until, so he realized what hotel you were staying at.
Well, he said he would call around the
He
hotels.
would call around the hotels just to see where you were staying at, and called the hotel and just asked for Dan McCarney, and the front desk just put him through. So I don't know. Have you ever hired anyone else from a random phone call in a hotel, or is Rhodes the only one?
Yeah, probably the only one. That's pretty unique. But, honestly, guys, when you go to those national coaches conventions, there's over 10,000 coaches every year. I went to my first one. I got through playing at Iowa, got cut in the NFL. I was a graduate assistant. Bob Cummings, after the season was over, said, Mac, you need to go to the national coaches convention. I said, what the hell's that? He said, well, there's coaches from all around the country, all the college coaches, many high school coaches, junior college coaches. They all gather. It's a good way to go meet coaches. You need to go to that. And I said, where is it? He said, it's at the Fontainebleau Hotel in Miami, Florida. I said, well, how am I going to get there, coach? He said, here's $100 and I got your room down there. And here's a dealer car, University of Iowa dealer car. You can drive your ass down to Miami and back, but you need to go. And that's my first coaches convention. And then I went to decades and decades and decades of them through the years, obviously, but that was my first experience. And I remember going in there, was probably about the second or third speaker. It was Lou Holtz. And I sat down. Here's a legendary coach at that time. Even way back then, he was still legendary before he went on and built on his resume, built on his career, built on his success. And he's up there talking for about 2 or 3 minutes. And he said, you know what? I just want you guys to know the place was jam-packed, guys. I mean, overflowing, just jam-packed. He said, I want all you coaches out there to know this. If you don't take anything else from me today, listen to me on this one. There's only 2 kinds of coaches in college football. Those that have been fired and those that will get fired. I'm thinking, I'm a graduate assistant. This is my future. This is what I want to get into. And that wasn't much of a motivational talk, but it was the truth. There's no doubt about it. And it sure as hell isn't made for everybody. And especially the head coaching positions. It's not made for everybody, but I'm just glad I got 45 years in Division I football as a player and coach. Incredible experiences, memories, and around some of the best coaches and players and administrators in the history of the game. I was just really fortunate.
Yeah, I think piggybacking off of that, we asked Rhodes this question, and he had a really fun answer. One thing that I think a lot of fans, when they watch a game, they go, run the ball more, whatever. And they see what happens on the field and see kind of a limited view of what happens on the field. But as a head coach, you're responsible for both that, the product on the field, but also everything else that goes around with it. And I think a lot of times people don't understand what a head coach actually does. Is there anything that you wish fans knew more of what a head coach's responsibilities actually are, other than just, hey, let's get some coaches hired and put them on get the players in the field? Like what about a head coach's responsibility is unique, and what are kind of that you wish the fans knew?
Yeah, I mean, there's many. The list is endless. As you guys know, not everybody can be a lawyer. Not everybody can be a doctor. Not everybody can be a podcast host. Not everybody can be a teacher. Not everybody can be a banker. Not everybody. Everybody can coach, though. Everybody can coach, whether it's 50,000 in the stands, 80,000 in the stands, 100,000 in the stands. I think we had 60 million watching our national championship game against Florida. Everybody can coach. So you better understand that. You better have some big shoulders and you better have some thick skin. I was called some things I never, depending on the outcome of the game or how things were going in the game. You're either their best friend or you hear some things you've never heard before in your life. But it's not made for everybody. That's why there's only, at the time when I was a head coach, it was only 126 of us. I'm not quite sure. I've been away from it a little bit now. I still stay real connected to football and coaches, and got a lot of my guys still coaching. But the thing they don't understand is every problem is your problem. Every ass ache is your ass. When you're a head coach and you put that hat on, as a position coach, it's just those guys you're coaching. As a coordinator, you really feel invested and connected to half that team. As a head coach, 120 to 125 to 130 student athletes, 18 to 22 years old, anything that comes up on the field or off, it's all your problem. And if you can't handle that, then you better get into another profession. Now, the difference is now when I was in the profession and nowadays, as you guys know, the money's incredible. It's off the charts. It's almost laughable. It's just when you stop and think about the money these guys are getting paid nowadays, there's times I wish I would have been delayed in my career and born later. And then there's other things about it that I say, no, I'm fine. I'm great. I got to experience some things nobody I could have ever imagined that I could have been a part of. 21 bowl games, the turnarounds, the pathetic programs at Iowa, Wisconsin, Iowa State, and North Texas, bottom 5, bottom 10, to turn them around into bowl championship or conference championships. When I went to South Florida, they were okay and solid after I got let go at Iowa State. They were solid, but then we took it to another level. We went to number 2 in the country, and I had just a great group of defensive linemen. Just George Selvey led the nation in sacks and tackles for loss. We were one of the real stories that year. And then because of that success, I got the opportunity to go to Florida, and we were 30-2 our first 32 games. And I got to hold that crystal ball like my family did as national champions. That was incredible. So all those things into it, it's really, really tough. It's incredibly rewarding. What I miss the most, guys, is the players and the coaches and the challenges. And when somebody says you can't do something, you say, blow it out your ass. Yeah, we can go do that. Yeah, we will do that. Watch me. It may not have ever been done before. Maybe it hasn't been done in a long time. And when you accomplish those things, it's just so special. Those things I miss. I don't miss right now what they're going through with the transfer portal or NIL. I don't miss that stuff, even though I fought for years and years and years to get more things for our student athletes. I don't miss that right now because that makes everything's just, it's up for grabs. It's the wild, wild west. All that stuff is real. It's true. And they got to get some guardrails on this whole thing. Otherwise it's just going to turn into a mess.
Yeah. I think that I'll put a conversational pin in the NIL stuff. You brought the Florida stuff, and you also mentioned just kind of the opportunities and the challenges. I feel like no team is more encapsulating of opportunities and challenges than that kind of era of the Florida Gators football, because you had, I mean, obviously you're national champ, like that is unbelievable, but the personalities and the size of the personalities and who was on that team, I mean, that feels like a once in a lifetime. I mean, every team is unique in their own way, but that team specifically feels like a once in a lifetime. Holy smokes. There's Tebow and there's Aaron Hernandez, and then there's Percy Harvin, and you have all these people kind of together. What was it like to be on that team with as much, human personality that existed in Gainesville at that time?
That's a great question. I'll tell you, just walking back just a little bit before I got there, we had the great run in South Florida, as I mentioned. I had more job offers after that season than I ever had in my entire career. I didn't even deserve them. I probably didn't earn them. But it was, I think, after all those years as a head coach at Iowa State, I think they realized, I can jump back in there, be a real loyal soldier, be a real good assistant again. I got calls. I was shocked to go back to Wisconsin, to go to Stanford with Jim Harbaugh, to go to Kansas, Mark Mangino, to just some phenomenal opportunities to be a head coach at South Alabama, which I was all ready to do, and start football from scratch. Just crazy stuff. Just all I ended up with, I think it was like 13 or 14 job offers after that season ended. Just some amazing opportunities. And I was all set to, I told the Joe Godfrey, the athletic director of South Alabama, I said, listen, let me sleep on it tonight. They flew me into Alabama for an interview. Everything went real well. He and his brother Mike there was with ESPN. Then they flew Margie and I, my wife and I, into Mobile, Alabama, and it was more of a recruiting trip than it was a interview. They had $12 million in the bank. They were going to play their home games at the Senior Bowl. They were going to build new practice fields, new locker rooms, new offices. They wanted me to start it from scratch. And I was a prime candidate because of what I'd gone through in Iowa, Wisconsin, Iowa State, where the programs were just bottomed out, rock bottom, and we built them the right way. So that made sense. And even though I loved it, and I was all set to go be a head coach again, and we wouldn't play games for a couple of years, but we'd get everything else in place. I just told him, let me just sleep on it overnight. but I'm really pretty sure this is what I want to do. Meanwhile, I get a call from Urban Meyer. He's on a private jet in Houston, Texas with Chuck Heater. He and I played against each other. He at Michigan, I at Iowa. We were both captains. The first game of 1974. We played in the big house. We were the captains that year. And he's sitting on a plane. He goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Getting ready for a press conference tomorrow." He said, "Where?" I said, "South Alabama." He said, "Well, hell, they don't even play football." I said, "I know, but they're going to start it from scratch." And he said, "Listen, let me just listen to you, Mac, because I want you to think about this. One time in your career, you need to go somewhere where no matter who we play, they're not going to have better players than us. They might have players as good as us, but not better than us. And another thing, you've worked your butt off. You've given so much to college football. This is Urban talking. You need to go somewhere where you can win that big ring and be a national champion." And he said, "We just gave up 780 yards to Michigan in the bowl game. I got a red ass right now about the way we played defense. You need to get your butt to Florida and give us help give us a chance to win a national championship." So I didn't sleep a wink all night, not one wink.
Can't imagine why.
I mean, I'm just horrible. I just felt terrible. I felt great about opportunities, but just, and then I started thinking about, maybe I should do this. So calling Joe Gottfried and Mike Gottfried and telling what I'd made a decision to do was really hard. But long story short, got to Florida. Urban pulled Marty and I in. He said, "Listen, Mac, you've had a hell of a career." And I knew this. He was in the stands as a receivers coach with Lou Holtz when I took the Iowa State team to win the first bowl game in Iowa State history in 100 years when we went and played University of Pittsburgh. Paulie Rhodes was the defensive coordinator, and we played them down there in Phoenix, Arizona. Well, they were getting ready. Notre Dame was getting ready to play in the Fiesta Bowl, and the Notre Dame team was in the stands. And Urban saw us play that night. And he said, "I'll never forget the passion, the energy, the emotion, and the chemistry that I watched on that team." And he said, "That's why I want to hire your ass and bring you to Florida right now, because I think you'll do that with our defensive line. You can help our defense. You can help our team." So long story short, I ended up going. We were 30-2 our first 32 games. Jeremy Foley, Hall of Fame athletic director, like many of them I've been around, incredible athletic directors. Just win, baby, just win. But those personalities, along with that talent to manage that, you talk about some cats now. And we beat Alabama when they were number one in the SEC championship game, the most violent physical game I've ever been a part of. We beat Oklahoma and Bobby Stoops in the national championship game when they were averaging 56 points a game. We held them to 14, 2 goal line stands. It was an incredible season. But to manage all of that we all had to do, not just Urban as the head coach, we all had to manage that, was something else. And then I'll tell a quick slide story here, guys, then I'll shut up. But
oh, for sure. This is gold, man.
Example of character and how much it matters and how much it means. And I've been around some of the most high character people in the history of college athletics. And I was with one of them at Florida too, named Tim Tebow. But here's 2 guys with incredible talent, and you just mentioned their names earlier. Tim Tebow and Aaron Hernandez. You know who on Thursday nights when we had family nights and Urban brought in the coaches and their families around the team to eat off a buffet dinner, but just to be around the players. Do you know who the players enjoyed the coaches' families and wives enjoyed being around as much as anyone? Aaron Hernandez. He had this unbelievable personality. He'd take kids and take them out in the swamp and play catch with them. He'd love them up. He'd hug them up. He was so good with them. We never had one issue other than a positive drug test out of Aaron Hernandez in the years that I was with him. Other than one time, the last game of his home career was his junior year. We played LSU. We're both in the top 10. We're up by 42 points in the fourth quarter. He scores his last touchdown, what would end up being his last touchdown in the swamp, and he punted the ball into the student section. Now, on the field, that was the only issue we ever had. And Urban got him over on the sidelines and gnawed on his ass and said, "Stop it, boom, 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 boom." That was it. Never any issues. But Tebow would hang with his teammates, and Tebow would hang with really good people when he was away from the team. Steve Adazio, who was the offensive line coach and recruited Aaron Hernandez, always worried that when he went back home for a summer break or a spring break, that he'd be hanging with bad cats up in Connecticut since his dad passed away. He'd just hang with bad people. And boy, was that something that sure came to fruition as time went on. Long after Aaron left, and he should have been a first rounder. He was in the Pro Bowl his second year. He had first round talent, but he had positive drug tests, so everybody backed off a little bit. They weren't worried about a gun, murdering people, shooting them. They're just worried maybe that this guy would be smoking too much dope. So that's why he didn't go in the first round. I think it was second year in the Pro Bowl. Tebow was okay in the NFL, but Tebow was full of character. Hernandez was not. And then he'd hang with these guys when he went back home, guys that had nothing to lose. Aaron Hernandez had everything to lose.
Yeah,
How about this? He played for the best coach in the history of the NFL. He had the best quarterback in the history of the game throwing in passes. He signed a new $45 million contract. He's got a gorgeous fiance. He has a beautiful daughter, but he's going to put a piece in his pocket. And if somebody gives him some BS when he's out at the bars at night, he's going to go find him and shoot him. How much sense does that make?
Yeah,
When all of us were heartbroken, sick, mad, angry. My kids, like all the coaches' kids at that time, just couldn't believe it. They were in shock. It was like, not the guy that we used to want to ride on the bus with, not the guy that used to play football with us, not the guy that wanted to play catch with us all the time. He loved kids. So anyway, I got off there on a tangent. I apologize for that, but it's a pretty good comparison of really high character and absolutely no character.
Well, and that's kind of the stuff that you're talking about is obviously not necessarily to the extremes of Tebow and Hernandez on the same team, but as far as like the head coaches having to handle stuff, every problem becomes your problem. Every pain in the ass becomes your pain in the ass. To a smaller extreme, every team has the guys that when you go home, you as a coach or as a friend of them, you're like, man, just get back to campus. Like, I need you to get back to campus in one piece. And like, there's guys, I'm sure when I say that, Grant probably has 3 or 4 guys just in his head right now. And like dealing with that, I'm sure that is one of the hardest parts. Again, Hernandez being the extreme example on one side of it, but like, that's got to be just when you break for summer or winter, that has got to be one of those, you talk about some sleepless nights of just being like, can we get all 120 back in one piece, making sure that they stay that. I'm sure that is one thing that a lot of times people don't understand is that it's all kinds of backgrounds that make up a team, and the ones that come from great households and the ones that absolutely do not.
And that's exactly. And, you know, the thing that I miss the most is, and I had 2 chances to go to the NFL as an assistant. I didn't take them. I ended up staying in college. That's one of the things that you really miss a lot. And I mentioned earlier about what you miss, no matter what, how big or how small or what size or how tall. You get guys that coming out of high school, as you guys know nowadays, you follow recruiting, you know, at Iowa State and Iowa and around the country. You get these guys coming out of high school now, 6'7", 330 pounds. Uh-huh. You know what? They're still little boys. They look like grown-ass men on the outside. They're still little boys. And when you get to take those little young boys, no matter how big or how wide or how short or how tall or how fat, and you get to help them become men, grown men, from these little boys inside from a maturity level, one of the greatest feelings you could ever have. And that's, let me tell you something, that's one of the things you really miss. You really miss that. But you see these guys, and then it's funny how this works, guys. I'm sure it won't surprise you, but if you recruit young men, either as walk-ons or scholarship or however you bring them into your program, and they have a real good work ethic, of course they got to have talent. They're going to play Division I, of course. But if they have real good work ethic, they have real good loyalty, they have real good chemistry on the team, if they're real good teammates, they're just real good people. They really care about the team. And you get them to understand that the team is more important than any one individual on the team. That's really amazing. You can accomplish some fantastic things. But it's not always easy to do that. But if you can do that, it's just so gratifying. And then you see these guys now go on after, as I can now at 70 years old, and I get around to go see a lot of these guys, and I get to speak to a lot of their companies that they work for or they lead, and these businesses and these families outside of football. It's just so cool to see it. But when you get a chance to see these guys and you wonder and you go, oh, gee, what a surprise. They're really successful, leading businesses, leading companies, competitive, got that fire burning inside of them. They're loyal, they're hardworking, they're high character. And you wonder why all these CEOs and COOs and all these people around the country like hiring successful football players and successful athletes, men's and women's sports. That's why. because they understand that. They know how to handle adversity. They know how to handle success. Somebody punches them right in the mouth, and you go, okay, all right, you got me. You got me, man. I'll come back, instead of going finding a place to hide in the corner. And a lot of people nowadays, that's you find out what they're made of and their resolve. And one of the things I'll always be proud of in the DNA that we build at Iowa State, and I could care less about what happened beforehand. When it was winless, it was winless. And I didn't know at the time that the record was just one thing. All the other things off the field and the facilities in the dark ages, and no fundraising, and no letter winners club, and no Cyclone Gridiron Club, and no Hall of Fame, and no all that stuff. It's like I didn't know about all that stuff, but being a part of it to build those things is always really, really memorable. It's always really memorable, and I'll always be proud of those things. But those things which you do together, and you accomplish things together, and you do things that maybe never had been done before, they hadn't been done in a long time, those things that are so meaningful now. And unfortunately, I've had to say goodbye to a lot of family members, a lot of former players that played under me, a lot of former coaches that coached with me, a lot of teammates in high school, a lot of teammates in college. It just brings into perspective this incredible bond that we had, how magnificent it was, how much fun it was, how much you cherish it now, and puts into perspective that you better enjoy every day, because you never know how much time we all got left.
Yeah, and you're talking about some people you had to say goodbye to. There's one that we're not going to say goodbye to, and that's kind of one of the reasons why we wanted to get there. But before I kind of ask a question, the guy that you mentioned back, the Iowa State days where it was bad and then it became good. One of the guys that had a big shift in transitioning that is very personally important to me. So I got my degree. I graduated from Southeast Polk 2009. Started playing at Iowa State in 2009, and in 2008, when I was a junior, there was a little business called Acceleration Iowa that opened up. The guys who started that, I think it was actually 2007 maybe, but they started it in 2000, somewhere in the mid 2000s. And guys who started were Jeff Jensen, a guy named Jack Whitver. And so Jack Whitver, I started training with Jack because he was a Kines graduate and he was in grad school, and then he's obviously gone on to do other things. But I knew him when I was a 16-year-old in high school, and he was my trainer, my guy who's making me run faster. And then I go to Iowa State. I start studying kinesiology. I need an internship. Well, I really liked my experience with Jack. And so I text Jack and said, hey, is it okay if I'm an intern? And yeah, sure. So I start working for Jack. He trains me on essentially how to treat people. Because no matter what business you're in, it's how do you treat human beings? And one of the things, the lesson that I always learned, and this is that he hammered this into every intern that he has, and it's the same thing with our coaches and the people that we have in my business, and is everyone's favorite word is their own name, and everyone's favorite conversation is about themselves. And you need to talk to them about them and use their name and get to know them and actually care. And that's Whitver was the one that was teaching that. And so he paired me then underneath a guy who eventually became my business partner. And in 2018, we bought the business from Jack Whitver. He trained us. He gave mentorship on how to do everything. And I'm at where I'm at professionally now. And largely because of how fast I got doing that program, I got a scholarship after walking on at Iowa State. I owe a lot of where I am to a guy named Jack Whitver. And I know that when you bring up anyone who is in the political arena right now, especially with just the environment that exists, where it's just this whirlwind of just slinging shit at other people, removing the R and the D or the blue and the red from a human, Jack is a terrific person. And so one of the reasons we wanted to have you on is because you have something to do with Jack. And right now he's going through a situation that is not something you'd expect someone as, young, lively, vivacious, healthy, and just a person that we love dearly, that you are involved with trying to help and make sure that his family and all families like his don't have to deal with anything that he's going through. So can you walk us through what association you have with Whitver and kind of the program or the event that you're trying to do as a fundraiser for research for the cancer that he's got?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing it up. Great story. Just love hearing that. Not one bit of a surprise when you're talking about what impact he's had on your life and what he's meant to you and what he's meant to so many people. We go back a lot of years. Skinny little ass out of Grinnell, Iowa. He came in same time Lane Danielson came in. Little skinny little ass out of Dyke, New Hartford. They didn't have Big 12 bodies. They didn't look like Division I football players. but they had everything else. They had work ethic. They had big hearts. They had pride. They came from doing really good things in high school. They cared about their teammates. They were tough as hell. It was important to them to, they both had opportunities, Division II, Division III, maybe a little bit of 1AA, some of that stuff. But in their heart, which is the most important thing, in their hearts, they said, we can play Division I. I had Mike Woodley in charge of my walk-on program. I wanted every coach on my staff involved, including me. But Mike oversaw it and did a really good job all those years building our walk-on program and getting guys to say no to some other places that we knew would have potential. So here come these two little cats, and they weren't ready coming in, and they were on the scout team, but it was like you just couldn't help noticing. You just couldn't help watching them. They're tough. They get knocked down. They come back. They come up swinging. It's in the 10th round. It's in the 11th round. It's in the 12th round. They're getting their asses kicked physically. Didn't matter. They just kept coming back. And then we just kept talking about them as a coaching staff. These guys are going to be something. Another one that wasn't too bad that came in the same time, Jordan Karstens, walk-on, undersized, skinny. Joe Woodley and those guys, Casey Shelton, those guys were calling me from the All-Star game and going, Coach, I know he's undersized, he's skinny, he's small. He's kicking the shit out of these guys going to Division I on scholarship, just kicking their asses. And we didn't even have him in the 105. He was in the 125. So made an executive decision pretty fast after Joe Woodley called me. We made a move and moved a punter into the freaking 125 and got Jordan Carson to the 105. Anyway, those guys all came in. They were just high quality, no question they're going to be good players someday. But Jack went on. Pretty soon it's getting a little bit of time on special teams. And then it's working himself into a position on offense. And then he's on scholarship. Then I rewarded him a scholarship that he earned. There was no gifts. He earned it. He and Lane and Jordan Carson's, all of them ended up getting on scholarship. Then he ended up being a starter. Then he ended up being a really good starter. And then Seneca Wallace and Lane and Jack Whitver, those guys end up being money now. They were magic. They were fun to watch. They were worth the price of admission to come in there and watch our football team. But those guys were fun now. You couldn't help but watch number 26. Anyway, just had this amazing career, as you mentioned, in politics, Senate Majority Leader. Everybody respects him. Really, it's not like you mentioned. Really, it's not about Republican, Democrat, old, young, Hawkeyes, Cyclones. This is about a guy that's given so much to the city of Grinnell that he grew up in, the town of Grinnell. This is a guy that gave so much to Iowa State in the years that we were together. This is a guy that's had a major impact on policies and improving the lives of Iowans as a senator. And back in January, he started getting some numbness in his hand and then his arm and then on the right side of his body. Toughed it out. Ain't no big deal, as you would expect from a tough guy. And then he and Rachel said, we better get this checked. Long story short, he's got a brain tumor, cancerous, non-operative. It's called diffuse midline glioma. It's very serious. A guy named Dr. Dave Smith, who's an Iowa graduate but grew up in Grinnell. He and I got together and we started getting some phenomenal, incredible people involved. We got a committee, almost 20 people. And we got a lot of people involved to help put on a phenomenal night, July 11th at Talon's Golf in Ankeny, Iowa. And my whole motivation was to help Jack and Rachel and the family and any bills that might be outside their treatment, because he's going to go July 13th out to Duke after finishing up all these radiation treatments that he's had. And then they're going to reevaluate everything out there and see what the next step might be. Well, there's going to be some bills outside of insurance. They also have these 3 beautiful, athletic, gorgeous kids that are 9, 11, and 13, and they have college funds put aside. These college funds put aside for these 3 kids. So we're going to raise some money for those kids and put some money in their college funds. Meanwhile, Jack is doing just exactly what you'd expect. The same things he did on the football field to help us make history and stop the laughing and stop the bullshit. And people, we were the butt of college football jokes for decades and decades and decades at Iowa State. And he helped us bring back honor and respect and winning and success. And those things, it's funny how it works, guys. You apply those things on the football field when it really hits you in the face and this is really serious. It's a tough thing. He's in for the fight of his life, and he wants to live. His will to live is unbelievable. But you apply those same things that you did on the football field to help you be so successful: resolve, commitment, dedication, mental toughness. I don't care what you say, what the odds are, I'll beat your ass. He's got that attitude. He's got this great family around him. He's got so many friends and people that care. So Dr. Dave Smith and I, and then we got a lot of people involved. We decided let's put on a night for Jack and Rachel and their family at Talon's Golf on July 11th. All proceeds are going to Jack and Rachel and their family, and then paying it forward to hopefully we can find some type of, there's so much cancer, guys, as you know, that's out there that we haven't found. We haven't found a way to beat it yet, and we're going to help with some of that to hopefully some children or grandkids down the road that may end up with the same thing that Jack has got, that they'll have a better chance to beat it. But I'm not going to sell him short. He's going to need, he's finished all his radiation, as I mentioned. He's going to need a lot of prayers, a lot of support, a lot of love. We're trying to help him financially. We got a phenomenal night involved. The governor, Kim Reynolds, is going to be there, from many of the senators, many of Jack's teammates. We're expecting a huge crowd. The tickets are going fast. We think it's going to be real special. But I appreciate you bringing it up, because Jack is just a phenomenal guy. One of the great success stories, honestly, guys, in the history of Iowa State football, where he began and where he got to, and the impact he had on everyone. And then to take that type of career and dedication in school and in athletics as he did as a student athlete at Iowa State, and then go impact the state of Iowa. It's pretty special.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how the hell I can follow up any of that stuff.
I think there's the only thing that I can think of, and this is just we can kind of wrap up that at least that point. There's another charity, and this is not necessarily specific to Jack, but you're talking about just dealing with kids. There's a friend of mine is on the board of a nonprofit called Children's Miracle Network. And what that is if you have Miracle Travel Network. I apologize. I'm going to get the name wrong, but please, it's Nate Burke. If the name of this charity is wrong, I sincerely apologize to this. But for situations like what you're talking about, if you have to travel to Duke, the travel to that is not covered by insurance. The treatment might be, and some people, you might be able to get that, whether it's a deductible or whatever. But if you have to travel to the University of Iowa for a kid or for a sibling or for a dad, and then you have to have childcare and you have to have food, all of that is provided by, there's a nonprofit. And I sincerely apologize for getting the actual name. I think it's Miracle Travel Network is the actual name of it. I'll provide it to Aiden so he can link it in the show notes. But that's another charity. So in addition to this, there's just so much good that you can do with bad stuff that happens. Because to me, like, this is like, I remember in a much smaller environment, but my senior night game was the 0-degree kickoff game. And it was, the field literally froze in 2013. We had won one game to that season. And I remember everyone was kind of thinking about that game as like, this is going to suck, because you look at the forecast, it's kickoff time is 0 degrees. But I remember talking with other players and then being able kind of encouraged to go speak and say this in front of the team. We ended up shutting out Kansas in that night, but it was the worst experiences make the best memories. And when you go through those hard things, when you go through the stuff that you shouldn't actually get through, like statistically, you shouldn't get through that. If you're 0 degrees, why the hell are you outside playing a football game? Why are you dealing with this specific disease? When you make it through that, at that point, you can say, look what I did. And so the worst experiences make the best memories. And it feels like, I don't know, that there's a lot of shit that goes on, but there's a lot of shit you can do with the bad stuff that goes on. And whether it be on July 11th for Whitver and Whitver's family, and then kind of towards cancer research, or I believe Miracle Travel Network. And again, I will get that name right in the show notes, but there's so much good that can be done. So if there's nothing else that anybody gets out of this, is do some good in the world, and it's going to be, it'll pay itself back. No doubt. And, it's when we had a recent reunion back up in Ames, just loved it. My guys had gotten together a couple of years ago and put this endowment together. I knew nothing, absolutely nothing. They didn't involve coaches. They didn't involve fans. It was players, period. And you had to come up with $125,000 or $130,000 to have an endowment. I didn't know about all this. They put it together, and they end up naming the letter winners lounge and offices and that whole part of the new complex after my family. I was staggered. I had no idea. Just
one of the most meaningful things you could ever be a part of. But as I said, and then Campbell was so impressed, he got a hold of a couple of my guys, and we had talked, and he had just said, we should do something and invite anybody that ever played at Iowa State, whether you're on winning teams, bowl teams, not teams, bad teams, good teams, great teams, recently, long ago. And so we ended up with about 150 at the first time that we all got together. Golf outing, loved it, enjoyed it, appreciated coming back. If I'm still alive next year, I'm coming back. The year after that, if I'm still alive, I'm coming back. The year after that, I'm coming back. It was just really cool because the point was, no matter what you do, where you've been, what you've accomplished, let's all come back. You're all Cyclones. You gave everything that you had. You may have fulfilled your dreams. You may have been denied some of your dreams, but you gave everything that you had. You should be proud of that when you come back here. And once you are successful, to go along with what you're saying, then if you can give back to Iowa State, if you can give back to Children's Miracle Network, if you can help Jack Whitver and his family, it's one of the greatest feelings you can ever have, knowing that you're successful, you've done really good things, you're taking care of your family, which is most important. But once you're really ahead on things and you're really starting to be successful, if you can help somebody else out, what a great feeling that is. And you bring up a really good point. And the children's, the new tradition at Iowa that started in recent years, guys, as you know, that was long after I left. I was there for 2 decades at Iowa. We never did that. It came long after we were gone. But it's one of the great traditions now in college athletics, college football. And just to see that, because the children's hospital was not built there. I was in the children's hospital many times, but it was an old rundown building. The new one's phenomenal. So it was just natural to build that in. And the lady that came up with that idea, they ought to put a statue of her outside of Kinnick Stadium. She came up with that idea. What a great idea. But you constantly get to try and improve young kids' lives, improve their day, make them feel better. They're going through hell, many of them. Many of them are going to get out of there. Some of them will never get out of the hospital. And if you can put a smile on their face and make them feel a little bit better, then why not do it? And that goes right along with what you're saying. And, of course, Iowa's done a great job of accentuating that. And now all the country knows about taking care of kids and give back if you can. And they just happen to do it as part of a college football tradition, which is one of the real special ones now.
So Coach, you obviously just mentioned Iowa. And when you took over at Iowa State had a losing streak to Iowa, ended up being about 15 years. And then you were the coach, obviously, that ended that streak. So went on to reel off 5 in a row versus Iowa. What did ending that streak mean to you? And what do you think it meant to just the Iowa State University and Ames as a whole, the community of Ames?
Yeah, streaks are meant to be broken, but you can talk about it all day long and come up and throw a bunch of BS against the wall and hope it sticks. But that's what was going on for a long, long time. We were winless when I got there. We lost 3 in a row. The third one that I lost to Hayden, it was 62-20, and it felt like 100-20 in Ames. Obviously, it was a complete mismatch, talent-wise, ability-wise, confidence-wise, success-wise. And I remember Coach Fry came up to me afterwards, and we spent some magical years together, incredible years. It's all been well documented. Our staff and all of us were young guns that just followed Hayden's lead, and none of us would have been head coaches had not been for Hayden Fry. I don't give a damn who it is. Snyder, Alvarez, Stoops, Ferentz, me, none of us. Mark Stoops, Mike Stoops, Bobby Stoops, Brett Bielema. None of us would have been head coaches without Hayden Fry. But it was just it was amazing because many of those games not only were wins when I was a part of a bunch of them in Iowa, they weren't even games. They were mismatches. They were laughers. It was over at halftime. I remember coming over there at Ames 2 or 3 times with Hayden, and you're at halftime in there going, all right, stay focused. They can come back. This is still a game. And those kids are looking at you like you got 3 heads, like, bullshit. They ain't coming back. They stink, and we're really good, and this game is over right now. Even though they didn't say it, they were thinking it. And that third loss that I had, Hayden came afterwards, and I love you like a son, Mac. You'd always say that, and we did have a phenomenal relationship. We said my quarterback audibleized. He wasn't supposed to throw that last touchdown pass. And I didn't say, Coach, bullshit. I ain't buying it. I just looked at him, and I shook his hand, and I said, congratulations, Coach. You got a hell of a team, and I love you. but I didn't respond to his comment because I know it wasn't the truth. I know what happened. If he'd have could have scored 100, he would have. Not because it was me, it was because it was Iowa State. Maybe a little bit of me, but just I'm the teacher, you're the pupil. I'm still the legend. You were my assistant. This is how you win games. This is how you kick people's ass. That's the way it was. Anyway, I knew bottom line. So, but I just put that in the back of my mind. And then long story short, it was 1998. We got off to a slow start. TCU got us. TCU ended up winning 7 or 8 that year. They had a good football team, beat us. And we went over there as a 29.5-point underdog. But I just knew I had a really good feeling. And regardless of the past and 15 losses and all the humiliating losses and all the embarrassment. And it's a great rivalry. Bullshit. There's no rivalry when one team keeps kicking the shit out of the other one. Oh, stop it. Go tell somebody that believes that bullshit. Don't give me that stuff. There's no rivalry when one team just constantly kicks the crap out of the other one. Anyway, we got off to a great start. Kevin Wilson blocked the punt. Defense was incredible. Offense executed. Darren Davis put on a show. He rushed for over 200 yards. And we got out of there with a 27-9 victory. So after 3 losses, then we went 6-3 the next 9 years and turned it back into a rivalry. All of them were important. All of them were big. Twice when they were in the top 10. In 2002, it was 24-7 at half, but that felt 44-7, guys. It was that bad. We were that pathetic and they were that good. And we found a way to come back in the second half. They went on, they didn't lose the game in the Big Ten, as you guys probably remember. I still hear from teammates and coaches and friends and people I played with. And you cost us a national championship that year. We don't win. We don't lose that game. We're playing for a national championship. Like, I really feel bad about that. Like I told them, I really feel bad about that because we beat your ass 36-31 after we were just getting blown out. But it was just all part. The 9/11 game, it was postponed to the end of the year. Both of us had good seasons. Both of us were bowl qualified. We played in Jack Trice. Close game. We won it. It was just some great memories. And I miss coaching it, guys. I coached in 25 of them. I think I heard this from a media guy last year. I finished 15-10. Wish I had a few more wins, but I'm glad I was on the winning ledger. But I miss coaching in that game, and I hope they never let it go. It's so good for Iowa and Iowa State. It's so good for the fans. It's so good for and now, because of some great games and some rivalry games, as you guys know, now more and more and more of the country understand that. And it culminated with game day coming to the Iowa State game. I dreamed about that stuff. I really did. I dreamed about that. I thought about that. I never shared it with my family or friends. I dreamed about it. When we started getting some wins and we went 6-3 in the last 9 years and we won 5 in a row, I kept dreaming, maybe someday College game day will come to Ames, Iowa for the Iowa State game. And they never came when I was coaching, but I was sure glad of what we were able to do and bring back the rivalry.
So, Coach, you're originally from Iowa City, too. So, obviously, from Iowa City, you played for Iowa. You were a team captain in 1974. And then you go on to coach Iowa for a little bit, and then Wisconsin, and then you go to Iowa State. How difficult was that? You're a better man than I am, because I would never go coach at Iowa if I had the opportunity. But was that difficult for you to coach for your biggest rival?
I tell you, what was really tough was the first year when I left to go. I mean, I've been in Iowa City 36 years, guys. My dad was chief of police. Mom worked at the dental school for 30 years. There was a scholarship in her honor, named in her name. That's all I ever knew. Loved the place. Snuck into games when I was 5 years old. The security used to be snow fences. That was it around Kinnick Stadium. If you can believe that, just those little snow fences. It's like, really, that's how you're going to keep
off Melrose and pop a fence. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So we jump in there, my buddies. We get over there and then go, do somersaults on the hill, watch a little football, but just go to the game and have fun. And little did I know I was going to end up playing and coaching there someday. Although I did sign the conference letter of intent with Iowa State. I was recruited hard, not because I was talented, because my dad was chief of police in Iowa City, and he had the best built-in bar in all of Eastern Iowa. So Johnny Majors and Jackie Sherrill came to our house 14, 15 times at least. They would always, when they finished recruiting Eastern Iowa, they'd always stop at Pat McCarney's house to come to our place and finish the night to come have some cocktails. Now, they were recruiting me to obviously and not trying to be a clown about the whole thing, but they also like to stop there, and Dad took good care of Mom, and Dad took good care of them. So they were there many times. And in all honesty, I didn't know I was going to coach then. I didn't know I was going to be a recruiter then. I learned a lot more about recruiting and people and communication and building relationships from Johnny Majors and Jackie Sherrill than I did any of the Iowa coaches. In the end, there were some Eastern Iowa guys, Iowa City, Cedar Rapids. Mike Seelig was an Iowa City quarterback from City High, hell of a player, great. They all took me out to lunch, and I ended up deciding to stay at Iowa. But I'm telling you, about as close as you could come to going to Iowa State. That's how close it was. Little did I know then I was going to end up being the head coach there someday. But great memories. Love the place. You go to the National Coaches Convention every year, and there's over 10,000 coaches there every year. And you stop and think about how many of those thousands of coaches would love to have had the opportunity to either be an assistant or a head coach at Iowa and Iowa State, either one of them. And I got a chance to coach at both of them, play at one, coach at both. I was really, really fortunate.
I'm from the east side of the state, so I'm from Cedar Rapids, so I get the allure of Iowa City. Obviously, you were in Iowa City, but I get the allure of Iowa. I grew up an Iowa fan, but then got recruited by Iowa State, and obviously ultimately ended up going there. Looking back on your days at Iowa State, when you think of your time at Iowa State, what first comes to mind for you?
I just we all the coaches and all the players that gave so much and cared so much, and all of them that took a chance to come there when it was so horseshit for so long. We didn't have any NIL money. We didn't have any facilities. They were the dark ages. We didn't have any history of success. 100 years and never won a bowl game. How about that? Friggin' 100 years and never won a bowl game. We didn't have oceans. We didn't have these beautiful lakes. We had the Skunk River. That's what we had names on. We had the frickin' Skunk River.
Ada Hayden.
But just to get people to believe and buy in, and then we built that DNA of who should have a bigger chip on your shoulder than the Cyclones. I mean, that I started that when we started. We played in the Donut Bowl my first game in 1995. The only two teams that hadn't won a game the year before were Iowa State and Ohio University. And we played on a Thursday night, and they called it the Donut Bowl because those were the two teams that win a game. That's how horseshit they were. And we won that game, and we turned Troy Davis loose on college football that night. And it was just so meaningful. But the DNA that we injected, I think, and built into every coach and player was just have a chip on your shoulder, fight for your brother, make no excuses, and someday we're going to make some history here. And all those people that bought into that. And what I tried to do, guys, was just anybody that touched the program, and you were both a part. You were both really successful at Iowa State. You made major contributions. Anybody that touched the program, if they didn't believe that, if they didn't want to be a part of that, if they didn't really want that a part of their personality, then don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out of here. Anybody, I'm telling you about student managers, student trainers, the doctors, anybody that touched our program, stop the nonsense. We're going to win. It's going to take some time. But I wanted that DNA in everybody. And it's not like you could just get a shot and inject it in everybody. It's over time. It's a day at a time. It's a practice at a time. It's a workout at a time. I'll never forget Matt McGettigan. I just had so many great coaches, guys. You stop and think about this, and I won't go on a tangent here, but I had some phenomenal coaches, some incredible coaches. Paul Rhodes went on to be a head coach. Chris Ash went on to be a head coach. Charlie Partridge went on to be a head coach. Tony Alford, to this day, is probably the best running back coach in college football, with me for a decade. He's been at Ohio State all these years. Michigan did a better job contract-wise and money-wise and taking care of him wise. He went to Michigan. Mike Grant's the passing game coordinator out of Wyoming, phenomenal coach. Steve Loney never got to be a head coach, but that's one of the all-time tremendous coaches I was ever around. went on the Dallas Cowboys, Phoenix Cardinals, was with me, left, came back because he loved Iowa State so much. John Skladany, I think one of the most underrated defensive coordinators in my career in college football. Phenomenal football coach, never got to be a head coach. Nick Quintero, everybody loved him, respected him. Got to be a head coach at a couple smaller colleges, but just so invaluable and so loyal and a guy that you'd want around you. Pete Hainer went to the NFL. Charlie Partridge is now the defensive line coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Donnie Knock, Bobby Karski, all these guys off the field were so important to me. But Matt McGettigan, my strength coach, to just talk about loyalty, okay? I coached his brother at Wisconsin. Big, strong weight room guy, stiff as a board. We went 1 our first year. We went 1-10 to 10-1 over 3 years. But we stunk our first year at Wisconsin. We knew we were going to be bad. I had a couple cats on defense. Troy Vincent, the assistant NFL commissioner, was a corner for me. I had him for 1 year. Donnie Davey was a defensive lineman, ended up being a third or fourth rounder. But on offense, you couldn't find a Division I football player. So we knew we were going to get our ass kicked. We were 1-10. But it was just, we had these great people. Anyway, I had Matt McGettigan's brother up there. So I knew the family. And then I heard through the grapevine about Matt McGettigan, who was the assistant at Notre Dame with Lou Holtz. So I get the head job, and I start thinking, you know what? I've heard so many good things about this Matt McGettigan at Notre Dame. I got to give him a call. So I called the head guy over there, and I said, listen, I'm interested. Is he ready? I've heard great things about him. I want to interview him. Boom, 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 boom. Long story short, Matt McGettigan comes with me. I hire him. 1 week later, guys, the head Jerry, I can't think of his last name, left and go to Oklahoma with Stoops. Lou Holtz got on the phone and called Matt McGettigan to come back to Notre Dame. Notre Dame, the Irish, the fighting Irish. Matt McGettigan stuck with me at Iowa State to help me build that. And I'm going to tell you what, there was not a guy in my 12 years at Iowa State that had more of an impact than Matt McGettigan. When we got done, I loved Iowa State. I didn't love the way it all ended, but the head coach, Troy Calhoun at Air Force Academy, called and he said, Coach, tell me about Matt McGettigan. I said, how much time you got? I said, this is exactly what you're looking for. If he ever left Iowa State, which he would never have left had I been the two of us together, if he ever left, he should either go to Army, Navy, or Air Force because he's the most disciplined guy that you could ever be around. He hired his ass right away. This is 2024. Matt McGettigan's still the strength coach at Air Force, and all they do is go to bowl games every year. So
Wow.
it's just so cool to have all these guys through the years that were a part of it, and the loyalty factor means so much, guys.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk to you for like days and just continue to get stories, but I think 56 minutes is probably enough for a podcast audience. Just one more time, though, what are the details on the Whitver fundraiser?
That's really going to be an incredible night. The governor's going to be there. Lots of dignitaries, lots of people in athletics. This is pretty cool. Seth Wallace, the assistant head coach at the University of Iowa under Kirk Ferentz, grew up in Grinnell. His brother went to school with Jack. He's coming over. He's going to speak. Kirk and I have talked. They're bringing over, they're sending stuff over we're going to have a silent auction, a live auction. There's all kinds of really cool stuff. And with great support from the people in the state of Iowa. So thanks for letting me mention that. Jack is fighting this cancer and this disease like any of us and all of us would ever want anybody in our family or anybody on our athletic teams to fight with that courage that it means so much to all of us. So, but anyway, I can see why you guys are successful. Glad I could be a short part of it, a little bit of it, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely,
Sure.
Coach. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Congrats on your careers tue at Iowa State. You guys did a hell of a job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. God damn. Dan McCarney, man. We said no wall was safe last week with Rhodes. Does anyone have any walls left in their house? No, there's 0 walls left in any Iowa State fan's house. And I'm sorry if you listened to that while driving because you probably ran a car through a wall instead of running through a wall.
Or got a speeding ticket.
Just gunning it.
Fired up.
Oh, man.
I thought Coach Rhodes was like the quickest hour that we've interviewed someone. I look up and I was like, oh, we're already at 50 minutes.
I legit think we probably could have asked 12 more questions over the course of the next 6 hours.
Oh, yeah. Just great stories, too. I mean, you can tell the passion he still has for Iowa State, too, which is why I'm so glad we got Coach Rhodes on because obviously we knew firsthand, and then Coach McCarney because I've seen it. I haven't met Coach McCarney, but I just see it in every facet. He just loves Iowa State and has so much passion.
Man, we I don't know how we top that. We're gonna for the next. We got some Iowa State legend players. We're back in the players category in the next couple weeks, and we don't want to overpromise anything, so we're not going to say exactly who, but should be some fun ones. And I also do want to did make a correction between the recording and the outro of this. It is Miracle Travel Works. It was the miracletravelworks.org. It is super worthy charity. If there is an ill child that has to go to, let's say you have to go to the Mayo Clinic and the whole family has to go to treatment with them, they will pay for the at least in part or a big chunk or the entire thing of like the hotel and the lodging and having books and getting them out of school and things like that. So Miracle Travel Works is a terrific charity. If you have a sick child or an ill child that requires treatment, information is on the website. And then also if you want to donate and you're looking for a worthy charity to donate to, that is another totally worthy charity. So yeah, miracletravelworks.org. That is the one that I was thinking of. I apologize in the moment. Kind of forgot the exact whole name. I believe that is, I don't know, hopefully a forgivable mistake that if we could do some good for kids. But man, Dan McCarney, just the best.
That was pretty good. I don't think we need to say anything else. So for Jeff, Aiden, I'm Grant. Thank you to all of our loyal listeners who are still listening. And as always, remember, adopt, don't shop.